All right, Kevin back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with Eric Collett. Eric, welcome. So awesome to have you on the show today.
It's fantastic to be with you, Kevin. I'm so excited for our conversation.
Yes, I am too. I'm really stoked for this. We're going to have a great conversation today. I want to start off by giving a shout out to Andrew Anderson because he was the one that connected you and I. He introduced us, and without him, Eric, we might have never even met. And here we are. I know I was just sharing before we hit the record button. After our previous conversation, I just found out some things about you, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to introduce you to my friend Mike. I was like, there's some really cool synergies between what both of you guys are doing. And here it is just a couple weeks later, and like, stuff, just, well, I don't know. I mean, I'm seeing your guys' email threads, but I get jazzed about that looking at what's happening because you guys are just now kind of just having this co-creative kind of collaborative conversation. And this being my world and doing this stuff for years, when that happens, I start getting jazzed and excited because I'm like, oh, this could be on the track to something really big and some really big impact here, you know? And so I don't know what that experience has been like for you, but that's what it feels like for me, you know?
Yeah, I like you, Kevin. I get so excited about new relationships and exploring the possibilities. And even if the worst outcome is that you meet someone amazing who's
Yeah,
doing great work and
yeah.
and you get an opportunity to have that much more faith in humanity in spite of all the craziness that's in the world today, then that's a really good outcome. But quite often, I find that as I'm meeting new people and exploring what they're doing, that there are really good synergies that come up that open doors to all sorts of possibilities that would never exist if it weren't for the collaboration.
Yes.
So I'm really grateful both for your introduction and for Andrew's. Andrew's one of my best friends. I spend a lot of time with him, and he is a brilliant executive coach and helps people unlock some of the biggest challenges that they face in their life. And it's fun to watch him work. So I just
Yes.
couldn't be more grateful for his friendship and his introduction to you.
Amen. Amen. I feel the same exact way. Well, what I want to do is I just want to start by I want to start turning over to you a little bit so we can set some context here and give our listeners a little bit of an idea of who Eric Collette is and what you're all about and the impact you're making. And so I just want to start off by, just asking you, what is the business that you're in and who do you serve, Eric?
Mm. Well, thank you for asking, Kevin. Um, I really sincerely believe that optimal brain health is required if you want to have optimal results in business and in life. If you want to get the best out of everything that you're doing, you have to pay attention to what I consider kind of the equivalent of hardware. And everything that we're learning and growing and striving to do is like software. And everybody knows what happens if you load new software on crummy old dysfunctional hardware. You're never going to get great results. So I believe that if people want to really do better in every aspect of their life, their relationships, their business, they need really good brain health. And my team and I have developed an organized system that helps people sort through the root cause issues that affect how a brain performs, identify in a very personalized way what's affecting them, make really specific recommendations, and then track that objectively to make sure that we're helping people improve their brain function by 20 to 30% so that they can learn things faster in this really fast paced world. They can understand new technologies more rapidly. They can find their words faster. They can have better, more stable mental health. They can prevent cognitive decline so that they can stay in the game and do the things that they want to do for longer. So everything that we've built is around doing that. And there's a lot of complexity overall in a business that's now been around for almost 9.5 years.
Okay.
But I would just sum it up by saying we help people get their brains better. And we especially focus on entrepreneurs and executives who want to function at an elite level. But we've worked with people in all stages of life as well.
Gotcha. And that's what I was going to ask you. Do you find, because I turned 60 this year, and I'm finding that, like, okay, I'm not quite as sharp as I used. Well, what I'm actually experiencing is that I'll forget things, and like simple stuff like, oh, where did I set my phone down at, or whatever.
Mhm.
And I'm finding that happening more. And so, and I mean, I've heard, not experienced it until, like, lately, that as we grow older, it does, the brain does decline, and this kind of thing happens and stuff. Do you find yourself working with more folks who are older because that's what's going on, or are you working with younger? What's the breakdown of who you guys serve?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's all over,
Okay.
actually. I get some younger people who have had traumatic brain injuries. Like they've been in car accidents or motorcycle accidents. They've
Hmm.
had very serious problems, or they're younger and they just want to know that they're optimal. I just met not too long ago before this call with a new client out of California who's in his 30s and he's experiencing a lot of brain fog. But just looking at some preliminary blood work allowed me to see a bunch of low-hanging fruit that nobody's ever looked at
Wow.
to identify that. So sometimes it's true that it's a younger person. Sometimes it's a person that's 50, 60, 70, 80, and they're noticing, hey, things are not what they used to be. But I think what a lot of people miss is an opportunity to quantify it
Hmm.
instead of just guessing about it. Hey, I think maybe I'm declining. Are you? Are you not? Are there measurable things? I think the more objectively we can approach it, the easier it is, number one, to know if over time we're making real results, but number two, to know where am I
Yeah.
compared to where I ought to be. And you and I talked earlier, Kevin, that toward the end of this, we're going to give people an opportunity to experience some things free of charge that would actually give them access to one of the best cognitive tests that they could take. They can do it right from their own home, and they can get a sense of exactly where they are. So I'm
That's
excited that
awesome.
we're going to be able to offer that to people.
That is really cool that this is actually measurable, and we can, like, measure, and we can also so we can then measure, like, there's things we can do, and then we can come back and then measure now where we're at as a result of taking those steps, taking those actions and stuff, which is really cool. That's awesome. So, you mentioned, so your business, you've been in business doing this for 9 years now. Is that what you said?
Correct. Yeah, I
Okay.
started it in 2016.
Okay. And so, what inspires you most about the impact that you get to make through your business, Eric?
Mm. There's a lot of things that inspire me about what I get to do, but when you ask the question, what comes to mind is an experience I had with a client he's been really open about his story. He said, You can tell people about this. I don't care if you share my blood work." His name's Gary Plummer, and he played as a linebacker for the San Francisco 49ers back in the Joe Montana, Steve Young era,
Okay.
and won a Super Bowl ring, and really neat guy. But when I started working with him a few years ago, um, he shared a devastating experience that he had had where shortly after retiring from the NFL, he was assisting a brother in a home repair business, just kind of helping his brother out. And he had done that lots and lots of times. And he realized one day that he couldn't remember how to install a doorknob. And he'd done that many times before.
Wow. Wow.
And he also recognized that emotionally, he could go from zero to fighting mad, bam, just at the drop of a hat. He realized that he was so easily triggered that he needed to just isolate himself from people. He wouldn't drive on the freeways because it was too triggering for him. He wouldn't travel without a handler to meet him at the airport.
Wow.
And if I sum up what this work means to me and how and what inspires me about it, I think of an experience a couple of years ago where we were able to do a big event down in Arizona, partnering with Steve Young's Forever Young Foundation. And we put on this big concussion awareness event for high school athletes down in
Okay.
Arizona. So we had this huge auditorium filled. And I got to watch Gary Plummer step on stage really for the first time in several years. He had quit speaking because he couldn't, he would lose his train of thought.
Wow.
And we were able to help him take his overall cognitive scores from I'd have to look to quote it exactly, but it was like the 58th percentile up to the 86th percentile. He actually now overall on his tests, several years after he started this, he's above average. And he was not doing well when we first met. And to see him step on stage and to get to present again and to do it confidently and to have the words flowing and to know that I got to have anything to do with that,
Yeah.
that was amazing.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
I could tell you stories all day long of people whose lives have changed and they get to do their art, whatever their work is, whatever their art in the world is, they get to do it because we help them get their brains to a point that they can do it. Or they get to do it better or longer because we change the trajectory for people. And so I feel like the work that I'm blessed to do, that my team and I do, is having a hand in a lot of other amazing things that are brought to the world.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that I get to be a part of that.
Man, what an awesome story that is right there. And an awesome result for someone that I'm sure, you sharing that. I mean, it's got me thinking like, you know what? I know some people that might appreciate knowing about Eric and what they do, you know? And so that is, and heck, even myself too. And and
We all
so
have a brain, don't we?
yeah, right.
And Kevin, that actually it brings to mind something fundamental that if people don't really learn anything else from the conversation, this might be one of the most important things that people could learn. And that's that diseases like Alzheimer's disease, which I'm a nationally recognized expert in Alzheimer's. I've literally talked in 39 of the 50 states to healthcare professionals. I do this constantly, but um, most people don't realize that Alzheimer's disease and other neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's generally start decades before the first symptoms ever show up.
Wow.
And that's a huge problem because we've all grown up in what I might call the sick care system, which has its benefits. The sick care system waits till you have an illness or infection or a serious problem, and then you go to the doctor, and then you hope that there's a magical solution. And if you have bacterial pneumonia or you get in a car accident and you need microvascular surgery or something like that, that's wonderful, and I'm so grateful that we have it. But when you're dealing with Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, heart disease, obesity, type 2 diabetes, all of these things are years or decades in the making, and we have to move upstream. And my work is upstream. It's identifying the trajectory someone's on and helping them know exactly what to do to feel and function better today, but knowing that we change the trajectory downstream. Most people need to know that Alzheimer's is preventable, but we got to take action. We need to do something about it now.
It's interesting, Eric, because I didn't know this. I didn't know this, and this really hits close to home. My own father passed away when I was just 16 years old. But when my dad passed away, my uncle, his brother, became that father figure for me and has been all these years. But my uncle passed away last February, and just
Mm.
February of this year. But prior to that, he had Alzheimer's. And we watched him deteriorate, over the last couple of years prior to him passing away, to the point where he didn't remember any of us. Nobody didn't remember didn't recognize his own wife and stuff. And I'm going to tell you, that is really challenging to watch somebody that you love. And for me, a man that became the father figure in my life for all these years, that to watch him deteriorate that way. And my dad got diagnosed with cancer when I was in ninth grade, and he passed away at the end of my 10th grade year, just
Mm.
18 months later. And so I watched my dad deteriorate too, to the point where his body would no longer serve him. And so I kind of went through that process with two of these men in my life that were father figures to me. And man, I'll tell you what, it weighs on you. And on one handle it, especially with my dad. I'm really grateful that I got to have, even at, just 16 and 15 years old, man, I got to have all the conversations with my dad. I knew what was going on. I knew that he was dying, and I didn't want him to die. But I got to have all the conversations with him. And when he finally did pass away, it was like this weight was lifted because he's finally out of his pain. But man, this takes a toll on so many people, and
Hmm.
and to have you say, "Oh, this is completely preventable," it's I didn't know that. I didn't know that Alzheimer's was preventable. And
Hmm.
you definitely got my attention when you said that. It's
Yeah. I can't say it's 100% preventable, but if you really dig into the research and the people who are doing great work in the field, you find anywhere from 40 to 90 to 95% of cases that
wow,
are believed to be preventable.
wow,
But people need to understand that brain health is never about one thing. It's multifactorial. So think about your brain as like a boat. And if things are good, you're riding high in the water, you're moving at top speed, you're going places, you're doing things. And when things aren't so good, you're starting to take on water. And at first, there might be a little bit of water. And people confuse what is common with being normal all the time in life. It's common for people to get more and more forgetful as they get older, but that is not normal. That's evidence of disease.
hmm
So
hmm
we've got to not confuse common and normal. We need to get away from having a little bit of water in the bottom of the boat saying, well, you are getting older now.
yeah, yeah,
No, we can measure the factors that contribute to how a brain is performing. And if you do that and you identify, hey, out of this list of 80 to 100 things, there's 20 holes in the bottom of the boat. Well, you're not going to stop the ship from sinking if you just patch one of them. And yet we've kind of grown up in this system that looks for monotherapies, one intervention that you can use. Hey, I'm sick. What pill do I have to take? But when it comes to brain health, there's a lot of fundamental things: hormones, nutrients, calming inflammatory markers, having the right building blocks of brain cells, metabolism, all this stuff that matters that are like holes in the boat. And the real game changer is when you understand what holes you have in your boat and you do something about it. And the short-term consequence is like one of my clients that wrote a LinkedIn article recently where he talked about he's 42 years old and he talked about going from the 68th percentile in his cognitive functioning to the 99th percentile and what it felt like to make that transition.
wow.
So he's getting better results in life and business today, but he also has a lot more assurance that he's changed the trajectory for tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah.
So that makes a
Wow.
huge difference for people.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's powerful. Well, okay. So now that we've got some context set and people know a little bit about who you are and what you're all about and the impact you're making, I want to switch gears just a little bit. And I want to start digging into the relationship side and having that conversation too. So, Eric, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons who completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And I'm really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
Yeah. Relationships are huge in all of our lives, but when you asked me that question, Kevin, I instantly knew exactly who I needed to talk about and what the relationship is. So um, let's roll back the clock to early 2017 when
Okay.
I had started A Mind for All Seasons, and I had done it as a solopreneur. And if we have time, maybe we'll get into kind of what led to actually starting that. But I was out there doing my thing. I had replaced my salary. I quit my day job as an administrator running in a memory care community. So I'd replaced the salary and I was doing okay. And I had an opportunity to work with a company in Arizona designing a memory care program for their entire portfolio of facilities. So it was a great opportunity. I flew down to Arizona, met with the owners, thought they were amazing guys, and we left with a handshake agreement that they were going to send me a contract in a couple of days and we were going to move forward.
Okay.
Well, a couple of days turned into more than 2 weeks. And I started thinking, what's wrong here? And I don't want to appear overeager. I don't want to seem desperate or anything, but what's the right point to follow up on a deal like this where they were supposed to get back to me in a couple of days? But I took some time and I'm a person of faith. And so I prayed and I literally said, I want this to happen. This would just make my year. But if it's not the right thing, please don't let it happen. And I promise that I will be grateful. I may not understand it, but I can be grateful in all things. Well, within a day or two, the CEO of that company called me and said, Eric, we're so sorry. You probably think we can't walk and chew gum at the same time. We're sorry to string you along all this time. But right after you left, we met a nurse practitioner who's gone on to do all this advanced training in neurodegenerative diseases, including a fellowship with a physician at UCLA at the Buck Institute for Research on Aging, who really understands at a deep level how to improve symptoms for people with Alzheimer's disease. And he's presented his knowledge and experience to us, and we think that we could work with him and we could actually help our residents feel and function a lot better than they are. And I said, are you working with Dr. Bredesen at UCLA? And they said, well, that's the guy that Randy, who we're working with, actually studied with. How do you know that? And I said, because I'm a brain science nerd. I read the research. I just didn't know anyone was actually applying what Dr. Bredesen had identified at UCLA in a 2014 paper called Reversal of Cognitive Decline, a Novel Therapeutic Program, where 9 out of the 10 patients in that pilot trial showed remarkable improvement, including one guy that had a hippocampal volume, so the memory center of his brain, went from the 17th percentile um, to like the 75th percentile
Wow.
on an MRI. So, like, this is legitimate. And they said, Eric, we can't afford to work with both Randy and you, and we've made a decision. We're going to work with Randy. And I said, well, you should. That's a huge opportunity. No one's doing that. That's fantastic. I'm excited for you. But let's stay in touch. I really enjoyed meeting you guys. They said, yeah, we hope we can stay in touch. Well, I got off that call and they had said, you should call Randy. He lives in Idaho like you do, but he was like 3.5 hours away from me. And I got off the call thinking, I'm not going to call Randy. I don't have time. I just lost what could have been the biggest contract of my business so far, and I'm going to hustle. So I hustled for a couple of months, and I got a phone call out of the blue from Randy Vaudry, and he introduced himself, and I realized, oh, you're the guy that got the contract, and I didn't. And he said, yeah, they want me to train their staff because they can't begin to implement the things that I'm talking about if their staff aren't really well trained. And I'm a clinician. I don't do that. And they said, well, we know a guy. And he said, I want to explore the possibility of collaborating. And I was driving through his part of the state the next week on a consulting gig at a hospital, and I said, why don't we get together? So I went to his house at about 6 o'clock one evening, and I was there till after midnight because he brought out this huge Bible-sized stack of research and just slammed it down on the coffee table, and he started going through the footnotes of the footnotes of the footnotes and what he had learned and what he was using with real patients. And I left that night 100% recognizing that we could make a far bigger difference than we had been making. And he and I had an agreement that we were going to split that contract. Neither of us would make much money, but we'd figure things out. And within 6 months of that sort of, you might say, dating relationship, I said, Randy, what are we doing dating? We need to work together on this. Will you be my business partner? Let's go all in on this. And here we are, all these years later, still working together, still innovating. And he's completely changed my life. He put me through a crash course in med school that was super intentional, where every Friday and Monday morning at about 7 o'clock for a few years, we met for an hour or two. And he taught me how to read labs. He taught me the physiology and the science behind everything that we're doing. And he's continued teaching me ever since. And I, that changes your perspective dramatically. So that's kind of a long-winded answer to your question,
That is a beautiful
but
answer to that question,
I
Eric.
I am so thankful for my business partner Randy.
Yeah,
And short of my own family members, my wife, my children, my parents, he's done more to affect my life than any human on the planet.
yeah. Wow. Wow. What an amazing story. And man, it goes back to what I ended up talking with you about at the beginning of this conversation today, which is this co-creative and collaborating kinds of conversations when we just do that with the right people and like look what comes from that. How many more lives are being impacted now because you and Randy came together on this? I mean,
Mhm.
that's a whole lot of lives. And when I start thinking about this, it's not even just the lives of the clients you serve. I'm looking at I'm looking at their families and all the people that are around them and that are associated with each of those clients and stuff. And man, the ripple effect starts getting pretty doggone big. And
Mhm.
so, man, that is a beautiful story. So, with where you're at right now, Eric, what's your vision for the company going forward?
Mm. Yeah, thank you. I feel mission driven to take this to the people of the world.
Yeah.
And so our current goal is to impact another million lives in the next 2 to 3 years. So we're
Okay.
trying to solve really high level problems. How do you take what we do at scale to the largest audience possible and impact lives? Because the reality is there's what, 8+ billion people on the planet. Everybody has a brain. Everybody needs more optimal brain health. And if you just look at the fact that the majority of Americans are not metabolically healthy, and Alzheimer's disease is nicknamed diabetes of the brain, if we just limited ourselves to the United States, there are tens of millions of people who desperately need the kind of help that we can give. They just don't know where to find it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the trajectory is help the next million in 2 to 3 years, and then help as many more of that 8 billion as humanly possible. We need to revolutionize the sick care system and really shift things toward proactively taking care of our health so that we have better outcomes both today and tomorrow.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I'll tell you, well, for anybody that's sitting here thinking to themselves, man, Kevin, I really love Eric. I love some of the stuff that he's shared, and now I'm really curious to know more about them and the work that they do. And man, that thing he was talking about, I want to check that, or maybe I know somebody else that I want to let know about that. Let's make sure we give them resources on how they can get more
Mm.
information and just follow up on what we've been talking about here.
Yeah, absolutely. Our website is amindforallseasons.com.
Okay.
So just think about the fact that we want to help you have a really good brain for every season of life, whatever that season is that you're in. So go to amindforallseasons.com. You'll find a lot of information there. If you want to get extensive blood work, you want to participate in our program, which is called the Enhanced Protocol, you can book a consult there and we'll be happy to talk to you and see if it's a good fit for you. But a lot of people just benefit from starting to learn more and from coming and asking questions and even having someone give different perspective on maybe blood work that they've had done. And we've actually built a really robust membership site for the purpose of educating people in general.
Okay.
So the site has online office hours where you can log in multiple times a week and talk
Oh,
to me.
wow.
You could talk to Randy. You could talk to a nurse on our team. And you can ask any question about your health that you want. And we'll do our very best to answer it leveraging the latest research. We also do a weekly masterclass where we take a deep dive on a health related topic. And we often have high level guests that come and talk about their books or their work or the key insights that they've developed. So there's thousands of hours of recorded searchable content. So think of it as like a curated place where you can go to really learn the things that you need to do to get your brain better. But instead of being a wash in information, there's an organized course that you can go through to learn the foundational things. And if you come to office hours, we can listen in just a few minutes and find out what it is that you need and pinpoint some things and say, okay, it sounds like your next right step is to do A. And then when you've done that, let's talk and let's help you do B and so forth. So if people want that, go to amindforallseasons.com/join.
Okay.
And at checkout, it's a $25 a month program. There's no contract. People can cancel anytime they want. But at checkout, if you put in the code MDR for Million Dollar Relationships,
Okay.
this great podcast, you're going to get 30 days for free. And on that site, you've got access to our CNS Vital Signs cognitive test platform. That's a test that's been administered over 20 million times in the last 2 decades.
Wow.
And CNS Vital Signs is a great company that we partner with to do that. You can take that test right on the site for $50.
Okay.
So really affordable way that we can help the masses get the information that they need to start moving forward.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to make sure that we include that link with the show notes and stuff, so it'll be right there handy for folks as well. And Greg, any last thing you feel led to share before we call it a wrap?
Hmm. Yeah, I think based on the fact that this show is all about million dollar relationships, I think it's important that people know that from a research standpoint, if you're more socially engaged, it actually reduces the risk of cognitive decline. So not only are things better in business, and not only do you have more joy in life, it's actually better for your brain to do exactly what you preach on this show every time you record an episode, Kevin. So whether you knew it or not, you're helping people have a much better experience when it comes to their cognitive and mental health because you're encouraging people to prioritize relationships and to be connected. And I think that matters deeply. So I wanted to highlight that for everybody.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I that's good insight because I'm definitely very very socially engaged. I spend lots of my days talking with entrepreneurs. I mean, amazing entrepreneurs, and man, I love doing that. Right here, I love doing this, and so yeah, hosting a podcast ended up being a pretty good thing for me. And so it's been an amazing experience. In fact, hosting this podcast over the last 3.5 years has been hands down the most rewarding and impactful thing I've done in my 30 years as an entrepreneur. It's been such an amazing experience in so many ways. And Eric, I just want to thank you, for just coming here and just sharing from your heart. And I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you. And I am excited to get this out there and share it with folks. So thank you so much, Eric.
My pleasure. Thank you for the privilege of spending some time with you, Kevin.
Absolutely.